And
Hello.
starting.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Nice.
So this is the beginning of symbolism stream number 2. Or repeat of number 2, since we already did one. So, yeah, basically I wanted to start with something like this, because I post 1,000 of these images all the time, and the funny thing is I post it, and I'm only thinking of, this. Oh, I can't write on this. I'm only thinking of this little piece right here. So I'm posting this entire picture, and I might put some, write something about it, but all I was looking at was like this little piece right here, or maybe these Euclidean geometric principles. Kind of zoom in on this stuff for everyone. I know it's a little blurry. I tried running this thing through AI image enhancers and all sorts of stuff. It ends up coming out much worse. So it's actually kind of better just to deal with it with the little bit of blur.
So Reagan, can I just okay, so the title, I don't know how big everybody's screens are, but the title here it says the monas, right? Hieroglyphian and its constituent parts. And then the diagram on the left there, Archimedean 7 divisions. Do you know anything about can you just give us an idea of what, because I know what the monad is, the monad, which I'm thinking that's what it's
Yeah.
based on, but
See,
you
look
can
down
tell us.
here. Down here, this is the monad, right? So this
Oh,
is,
I thought the monad was the dot with the circle around it.
well, it is. Right? Like the sun, the gold symbol, is typically what's associated with the monad. But I, I have a feeling that that is one tiny piece that has been made to be the monad, where really it's
Oh,
this
wow.
entire picture. Just
Okay.
my theory. I, Anyone else could.
Do you have a theory? Do you have a theory why that would be, or
Yeah.
just a guess?
Oh, the theory of why it would be simple. It's divide and conquer. So you break up the original image into smaller components, and then you tell the masses that one component is the entirety. Do you see how the trick
Mm.
there kind of
Mm-hmm.
that's how you make a veil. That's how you create
Okay.
an illusion, right? You're taking the whole thing, the entire picture, focusing in, right, like a microscope, looking through the lens of a microscope. And then you're being told that this is the whole picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now the sun now is your entire world. Well, that's not true. We have the 4 elements, eras, or the wave sign of life here on the bottom, the feet that you walk on. You got the moon as well. There's a lot more components to that whole picture. So it's like there's entire books and encyclopedias and people who have dedicated their entire life to studying the monad, and they only studied one piece of it without even knowing.
Right.
The sun
Okay,
and
I
the
got you. So
gold.
that's intentional.
The
Sorry, go
sun
ahead.
and the gold is Egyptian. That's in some of the names.
Well, and we could say that too, but again, this is where I'm speaking purely in symbols in this, where Egyptian is a name and a symbol that's tied to a time period of a history that can't be verified. Right? So it's like these are all names, titles, labels, symbols, all these things. They can be changed and altered and manipulated. We're talking about just purely perception. So, like, yes, the sun and the gold symbol with the circle and the dot in the center is typically associated with Egyptian. These hieroglyphics are associated with Egyptian. So, a lot of this of what you're going to see is Egyptian. But if you look in the bottom left here, it's tying in the Roman numerals right here. Right? So, really, like, it's not going to matter what time period we're talking about. This is why I like using symbols like this, because they go
But
across all the time periods.
what does it ultimately symbolize? That is completeness, a wholeness, the center in the middle, and then the circumference,
Are you
the
talking
sun
about
and the
just the
pole.
circle, the sun symbol here?
Yeah. I could be wrong.
No, I mean, it's like a microcosm of the macrocosm. So it's not that it's like entirely incorrect, but it's also very isolating. It's just like, with television. You can manipulate what people are seeing on a television. You can make storms look much worse than they actually are. You can make it look like it's better than it actually is. You can manipulate people's perception with a television screen all you want, right? So the
Where's
same
the
thing with
originator?
this.
Is the originator the dot,
Yeah,
the prima causa?
because that's going to be your nothing. That's your not. It's your void, your abyss, your black hole, your where everything comes from. Because it's from thought, and thought's not a quantifiable thing,
That's
right?
interesting. It kind of relates to that hook. You are all that I am, me. You are all that I
Where
am.
where is this?
I mean, when
And
you
the music
sing that,
thing.
I see the letters of what you're saying right here. You are all that I am, me.
There you go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I am that I am.
So the all is still the all
That I am.
that I am.
So do you know, so what did you, I mean, I don't know how you wanted to go here, what direction you want to go. Like, do you have specific things you wanted to say about this, but why are we looking at this specifically? Like, what does this represent for,
So
you know,
what I was,
I don't know, everybody?
well, that's what I was like trying to explain for the last couple of minutes. It's
Hmm.
these are the basics, the foundations. They're just pure symbols. This is like where I'm trying to say to everyone the way that I want this channel to be, or what I'm trying to express in a lot of the work that I do. It's showing that the names and titles and labels and all that stuff, they're attached to your ego, and they're attached to fictional things like nations. I was just talking about this with somebody earlier in Silas's YouTube comments. Like these are purely fictional things, they're a lot more of what you make it. And so when it comes to like understanding mass mind control, or like what you think the government's doing to you, all these other things, to me, I think it can all be broken down to a few basics. I think things are very, very simple. The illusion is that it's all been overcomplicated.
Hmm. Okay.
Right? This is why I talk about the four states. I talk about four things. This symbol, this pole diagram I have in front of you, it's all about like four parts, four pieces that are like the basic pieces. Then you can see all the other numbers, where it gets more advanced as you go along, when you get into like the sevens and 12s, 24s on the right side there.
Yeah.
That's just
Okay.
making it more complicating. You don't even really need to go there. All I want
Okay.
to focus on is the basics, which are the four elements, these four simple drawings here. It's a half moon, the circle with the dot in the center, a cross, and
Did you
the letter M, essentially.
did you say 24? That could be the 24 relating to the Bible.
Well, that's my
Could
point.
it be?
My point is that it will go across everything. You can find the 24 across every religious sect at some point, along with the 8, the
And that's the
3, the
government of
7,
God, isn't it? Is it?
Yeah, the 12 too, right?
the
Yeah.
12. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's all common. It's like when you're making a password. think about it with the average person that makes a password. How do they make their password? Well, they make it so that it's very rememberable to them personally, but they make it complicating enough that others won't be able to figure it out. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, to me, this is like trying to break apart the password that whatever the creators or controllers of our lives put out right in front of you. Because they always have to remember it too, right? You have to remember your password to get into your computer, right? Have the key
So is
to
this
get
the
into
real
your
life
safe.
Da Vinci Code we're trying to crack here?
Well, I'm just trying to break down the key itself, you could say.
Whose key is it though? Where did you come across this?
This
We'll do
particular picture.
we'll do the we'll do the presentation first, then we can. So just note down your questions and that, but we'll go through what Reagan has to cover, and then we'll take questions.
Well, that's the thing, Silas. I don't have a particular presentation put together. I just loosely wanted to start from this point. And then that's
Well, can
why
I ask
I
a
wanted.
question real quick?
Yeah, that's
Oh, I'm
why I
sorry. Go
wanted
ahead.
more
I didn't.
people to be in here, is because I'd rather have
Right,
questions.
okay.
I'd rather have people interacting. If I just sit here and present to you, I might as well just make a video by myself, and you guys can watch it on YouTube. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I, that's cool with me. I'm good with that. But like, so we just need to wait until you're done speaking, and then somebody can interject and say, "Excuse me, I have a question" or something like that. You know. But the union of opposites. Why do they call it that? I know I'm asking a dumb question just for anything, for the room, for me maybe.
Male and female.
Okay.
I think as well it points to what you were mentioning, Reagan, regarding this notion that perception really.
Union of
I think
opposites.
me and Armin were speaking about it in our discussion, where it's this idea that you see in the Monas Hieroglyphica, which is it is the monad, it's the one, it's the wholeness. And the notion is, with this union of opposites, is that the way our perception functions is it functions on this sort of negative and positive duality. So what it's showing is the union of all of these things that ultimately we see as opposites, that ultimately, are utilized to keep us in a sort of psychological stranglehold. Of course, as well, I mean, the elements themselves have their own specific alchemical meanings as well, but yeah.
Would you say, Regan? Sorry.
I was just going to say real quick, people apply these kind of things to physical attributes instead of mental attributes. So there is a union within your mind of all these opposites because they do exist. And they do have to come together and be the all. Correct?
I thought it was Ewan's.
Well, Ewans, whatever. I have my Ewans with me every day. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Would you say, Regan, that or would it be a possibility for you? I don't know what your stance is on the matter, if you have one. That the symbols pre-exist the system of control per se, so the false worldviews, etc. And those who inherited these symbols don't really know what they're about and just use them for, in a way that is probably not the original intent behind. Would you say that would be a possibility, or they are perfectly aware of their meanings and their usage and all the extrapolations from there? What is your view on that?
Well, I'd be about 50-50 on that. I think it's possible for either or to have succumbed. I don't know that answer, right? Like that's just not. Um, it's so outside our realm of, how would you actually know that I wouldn't know.
No, yeah, but the question is more like, for example, we see the system of the setup, the structure of the system of the worldview system in the Tree of Life and the Kabbalah, right? In the Sephirots and so on. We can see that, the division into three pillars, with one controlling pillar, one controlling Sephiroth on top, and etc. So that structure is transferable to the worldview, right? So that I would say, yes, it's a mimicry of something organic that is used to produce a Frankenstein monster, like me and Silas were talking earlier today. But what I'm asking is, do we see the results in terms of false worldview of these symbols? When I say these symbols, is these symbols together, not in the divide and conquer way that you were talking about earlier, but these symbols together. Do you see the effect of them as a mimicry, with an effect towards the system of power, or are they used sort of just as embellishments, like you were saying, to remember the password, and not really? They don't really know the core meaning of these symbols. It was more in that down that line.
Yeah, again, my answer's still going to be both. It's a big mix of both,
Mm.
Harmon. I'm not going to give you a different answer, no matter how you phrase that question. Again, you're also getting into a point of over complexity, over complicating it, right? I wanted to say oversimplified for some reason. Oversimplification's the direction I'm going. That's like making it too complicating. You're stacking so many pieces on top where it's like, okay, now we're getting way too far outside of the framework of keeping it simple, essentially. And again, that's why I answer that way too, because it is like I really have no idea. I could run it a million times in my head. I've thought about that, Armin, and out of the million times, it's like flipping a coin. Right?
Right.
So
Right.
Okay. That's where I'm at. That's the final point I'm going to get to right now. That sounds like one of those things like you're going to find out when you pass on out of the body experience.
Okay. So
in my opinion,
I think if I was to speculate, I think, to me, perhaps they are, they perhaps do fill at a certain level of the compartmentalized pyramid that is the world system. They will philosophize about these things. They'll see them as more as gang tags than actual hidden meaning. And of course, even the meanings that they believe are attributed to these things, perhaps are not that. They're still, fruit born of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, rather than fruit born of the tree of the whole. So it's, yeah, they may simply be inferring from these things meanings that aren't there. They may be then taking these symbols as artifacts of, ancient thoughts that they've stumbled upon and now control and reiterate and reuse for whatever purpose. Obviously, control internally and externally, but it may be all hubris. They may have come across these things. They may be applying them in a manner that they were never really meant to be applied.
Silas, it reminds me of those people that find Chinese characters or Japanese characters, and they tattoo them, and they think that it means like a great proverb or whatever, and it just says moron or asshole,
idiot,
that kind of thing.
elephant.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
so I mean,
wonder
how do we know for sure what any of them mean is what you're
Correct.
basically getting at, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
I think they're
Yeah.
meant to. One way to use them is tabula rasas. I mean, of course, you can go through alchemical works and other tomes, and they will give you, of course, even Kabbalistic works, they will give you general meanings behind what these things are. But fundamentally, when you start, if you were to go through any secret society or mystery school, for example, let's take the Blue Lodge of Masonry. The whole Hiram Abiff story, which is the story of the initiate or the story of Osiris, they're all synonymous. Uh, he is struck by three ruffians. They're also known as three Jews, and these three ruffians, Jubella, Jubello, and Jubellum, they they have they hit him in specific places. They themselves, their names have specific meanings, and of course, then in Masonry, in the Blue Lodge, that is attributed to certain. It's attributed basically to the 3 degrees of Masonry and the initiation and purification ritual that goes on with those. But when you start to reach into other mystery schools and even into higher rites within Masonry, supposedly, we read this from Morals and Dogma, Albert Pike clues us into this, that these three ruffians are, in fact, there's a deeper meaning to them than what you see in the Blue Lodge, for example. So it's like what Reagan's saying. You actually don't know. we can infer what these things are. They're actually I think they're cognitive canvases that are to show us that they're to show us firstly the monad. They're to show us thought. That thought is this immeasurable thing. You can't truly measure thought. But the way that another segment utilize these things, the world system, they see the lines, they see the geometric shapes, and they attempt to use that to build a structure, to measure the immeasurable,
Yeah.
to try and quantify these mysteries into actual tangible things, and then eventually they destroy themselves and the system that they've built. That's what it appears to be.
For example, that symbol, the third from the left at the bottom row. What is that? What is that considered to be?
Philosopher's Stone.
The third from the left, the Philosopher's
Yes.
Stone, that one?
Ah, yes, the great work, the magnum opus symbol.
This guy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I was recognizing that symbol and I didn't know where from. Okay.
There you go, Armin. Yeah. That's
okay.
like the fourth phase is the Negretto. That's why I always go back to like 4 and 4 components and etc. Yeah, where was the? Oh, here it is. Philosopher's Stone. Right. Oh no, sorry, that's the cross.
I mean that philosopher's stone as well, or it is the symbol of the magnum opus.
Yeah.
It's
See, it's still the same thing here.
Yeah, it's see that itself is the idea that the end is in the beginning. You'll see the circle in the middle and the circle on the outside. So it's the same idea as you're seeing with the monad, the
What is
you
that in the
have
middle?
This thing.
Yeah,
This is
that.
like the actual stone, right? Just like from Harry Potter. That's what they make it
Right,
look
yeah.
like.
Because that, just by happenstance, I was looking at that meteor that they claimed to have landed years ago. They claimed to have landed a probe on this meteor that was, or comet or whatever, that was approaching us. Looks just like it.
This.
Aha.
Yeah.
Doesn't that also look like the penny of land?
That's what I was going to
behind
say.
Yeah.
yeah, good thinking.
Yep, which
Hmm.
like if
So all these symbols
you
to
map
me
this,
come back to the mind.
yep, you map this, the Philosopher's Stone drawing symbol, I guess you would say, or the sketch symbol onto the face of a man. Well, the circle is going to encircle where the pineal gland is.
Right. Okay.
And then this will be like
Okay.
the dimensions of your brain. These are the two temples on either side.
Yeah, and this
I
is what
see.
I always thought was the actual meaning of squaring the circle, not anything to do with physical reality.
No, it's this.
Yeah.
Mm.
I wonder who made
Yeah.
this one. It's interesting art. Most of this stuff comes from Pinterest and some other random things here and there. I did something better with that somewhere in here. I just don't know what I labeled it. So I label all this stuff wild things.
Well, can I just comment on the monad for a second?
Yeah.
Well,
I'll put it up.
looking at that center drawing of the monad, it's pretty simplistic in itself, right? It's like the sun, the moon, Venus. You have at the bottom the sunsets, or the sunrise, sunset. You have the moonrise, the moonset.
Yeah.
You have the crossing of the two in the middle. I mean, if you had a chance to go back to the first humans, I think they would relate themselves to the sky. That's my opinion. Like, where did we come from? Are we like that? Because there was no influence, right? So even if you're a child, you can see when the child sees stars and moon and all that stuff for the first time. It's fascinating to them because I think they know the thought about it. That, if that makes sense, like they are curious about it, right?
Right.
Before somebody tells
when
them
you're a newborn.
science. Yeah.
Any
Or when they
newborn.
first get their real eyesight, right? Because newborns can't really fully see. But when they're actually able to see everything, they are fascinated, and parents just want to get them involved in life immediately. And it's like, no, let them walk outside and wonder about all this stuff. That's what you need to do, because that's what everybody does if given a chance.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the belief as well. I think I do have John Dee's John Dee. Yeah, I think it is John Dee's Monas Hieroglyphica, and of course he speaks through this. Well, of course, this he shows this this symbol, then speaks through it on the meanings of it, and I don't. I think the quote is from here. Anyway, I have it in my notes here. It's yeah. So effectively, it's also seen within the mystery religions as the flag of conquest, and the idea is that you transgress the oneness because that is what God would have wanted. So this is, you're sort of getting into the mindset of the secret societies at this point, right? The way that they bind themselves together is through transgression, yes, but the it's something deeper and far more metaphysical. So they're almost for example, if you see yourself as a good person, right? They would see you as weak. Or even if you see yourself as a wholly bad person, they would also see you as weak. It's like what Linda's stating. They believe that we are here to experience a totality, right? That God has projected us as a self-reflection, almost as as a reconnaissance, spiritual reconnaissance force, right? We are to understand all of the dimensionalities of our own soul, and these dimensions are drawn by our experience. So in their mind, when they are doing the most evil things one day, and then given to charity the next, right? There's no paradox of their persona or of their characteristics. It's all part of the greater work, right? Again, you split the world to rule it, and you burn the world to fuse it. So it basically is the magnum opus. It's how you get things done, if you're, of course, part of the elite.
So is the elements the four corners of the earth then?
The elements, yeah, I mean, that goes back to Naram Singh, and he was the king of the four corners of the universe. So the four corners themselves are, it's not necessarily the actual elements. It's not air, fire, which are the male, female being water and earth. Those, it's like what Reagan was mentioning. It's those things are symbolic. They're metaphorical, and they're placeholders for, or the four are placeholders for the axis of stability. And then you see the three, which are the axis of generation, right? Leaving out the quaternity of the four, which is obviously the artificial element, which is produced by a combination of the three within the triangle, which is that of earth. That is the fourth one, would be earth, the artificial. So basically, the Monas Hieroglyphica is showing how you become God. It's showing you the secret history of the world, effectively. That this is how you become God. You become God by embodying an equilibrium of the totality of all dimensionality, all duality, right? That's another belief that they have regarding the symbol.
To be crowned king of the mountain.
Yes.
Looks
Well,
like a little one-eyed demon.
It is a one-eyed demon.
It's a cyclops, but
You can look
Anyway.
at it however you want.
Yeah,
That's the
I
thing.
You
that's
can.
what I'm saying.
That's the beauty of it, yeah.
That's where
Looks
I
like
was trying to
reflection.
Hathor
get
as
with this.
well. Hathor with the crown.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Actually, and it looks like a person, and you could even say maybe this is the early idea of Baphomet right here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is your
It's a
blueprint.
mirror.
Duality.
It's a mirror.
I just thought of a possibility as well, as another meaning. I don't know, Noble, are you there? Are you able to speak? Because Noble, would be more for Noble. So only if Noble is available.
Yeah, what's up, guys? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey man,
Yeah, loud and clear.
listen. One thing that just occurred to me, and you tell me if this would be possible or not. Would it be possible that this means Sun in conjugation with the Moon, cross, so opposition to Aries? Would this ever happen? Would this be like a template for a moment, an astrological moment? Because they match their scripts to astrological conjugation. So would this ever occur? Sun and Moon conjoined, or whatever the name is,
Eclipse.
opposite to Aries. Mm-hmm.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So the sun and moon come into conjunction, or they create a new moon in each of the 12 constellations. So at one point, yes, indeed, they would be in opposition. Well, in Libra, in opposition to Aries. Yeah. So that certainly could be one idea behind that. Yeah, and I do see where you're going with this idea that the sun and the moon are conjunct on top of each other. Yes.
Right. So, I mean, if you could run your app, I know you have an app that is specialized in that. Do you know more or less? I mean, does any date jump? Any quote unquote historical date jump to view when you ask it for this type of conjugation? So in Libra, with Sun and Moon conjoined, conjunct, or whatever.
No, not off the top of my head, but I think it would be instructive to be reminded that Aries is arguably it's one of the starting points that's represented in the zodiac, right? Aries is in the northern hemisphere, right? The end of March, beginning of April. So the springtime, the beginning. It represents the native in astrology, or the I am. It's kind of the body, the individual, the incarnation, the person that the oracle may be referring to specific to that natal chart. So, but interestingly, what's across from that on the other side of the circle, if you can picture a circle in your mind, and you have Aries on the left side of the circle, and directly across from that, again, Aries representing the native, or the I am. On the opposite side would be Libra, and Libra is the symbol is the scales, or balance, fairness, actually the bringing together of the opposites, frankly, and it represents the other. So it would represent, yeah.
Can I chime in real quick before things go forward?
Go
I
ahead.
just counted the lines on that little monad drawing. There's 12.
On this?
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
There's 12.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So the
Mm-hmm.
zodiac.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You have to count the short ones and all that, but there's 12, including the dot.
12 zodiac signs
Yeah.
right here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's why I like this little one. It just sucks that it's so blurry. You know, sure we can find a better one day here.
Very interesting.
I was also watching recently. Do you remember that? It was kind of a crappy movie. I think it came out in 2008 or 9, 10,000 BC.
Yeah.
And I was watching it on Amazon Prime, and there's trivia that comes up regarding it. And I'm not joking you, most of the trivia was on Orion, it was on all of these various constellations, and of course it's seen in the Monas Hieroglyphica as well. It's instead of Orion, you would have Mercury, for example, even the Sun as well, depending on what mythology you're in. So you have this sort of triad of the father, the mother, and of course the son Horus. That also is found in the recent Frankenstein movie too. You have the Saturnian father, who is he's interred in the black coffin. Of course, he's entirely, usually, whenever he's on screen, clad in black, some black outfit. And the mother has the white and the red, right? The white of the semen and the red of the menstrual blood. This effectively is the idea of the mother being both the symbol of the sacrifice, right? She gives up her time to nurture the child. She goes through pain, the pain of sacrifice to birth new life. And moreover as well, the white can also be seen as the solar, some sort of solar symbolism, but it can also be seen as a symbolism of the lux, or the light of innocence. So, and then you have the Victor Frankenstein, who is the sort of Horus character, you know, the widow's son, if you will. You see that a lot in Masonry, and he carries both the white, black, and red all together. Now, of course, this was seen, the white, black, and red. That was also seen. It's actually not seen quite a great deal in not to my knowledge anyway. It's not seen quite a great deal in national colours, but the only nation that ever had those colours, the Nazis. That was the only one. So it was. I think there was some ritualism going on there. That was almost like a geopolitical sacrifice itself. Oh man, that British sarcasm is rubbing off on you.
British. That's American, buddy.
This picture here that you have, Reagan, it has the degrees on there. I like Manly P. Hall. He's always brought up the degrees, right? He talks about them a lot, and it's like that's true. It is true that you're born in degrees, right? You don't just pop out. You're there. It's a it you come out in degrees slowly, right?
Come out
And you
here
live
and
in degrees.
start
And you
moving.
die in degrees. It's all about degrees. So they're not actually breaking it down to um, the point of it doesn't exist, right? All these degrees do exist in your life. Because I've thought about that a lot. I've been listening to a lot of his stuff, and I always wondered what he meant by that. And then that's my thoughts on it. Like that is true. The degrees, they do exist. It's how you remember them though. Like the mother, right? Um, birthing the child, all the pain, all the whatever she went through, it disappears. The degrees are gone once the child is born and they're never thought of again. So we forget the degrees. Just saying.
There's also the idea that, you spend 9 months in the womb, which isn't a full solar year. So when you're born, there's this aspect of the 3 months in the womb that are missing. And perhaps that's part of the reason why there's differences between individuals, or even the reasoning behind the zodiacal signs.
I think that's how you have
I
like
mean,
the
none of
12
these.
zodiacs versus the Enneagrams 9, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think most of the birth charts or anything like that take into consideration the time in the womb, which is probably very influential.
Yeah, I mean, we never talk about it, do we? It's your life is from the day you're born until the day you die. You die with there's more thought given to what happens after you die, especially in these sort of death cults that seem to surround us. But very little thought is given, at least in the mainstream, very little thought is given to perhaps what happened before birth or even before conception. And I always think of these when you simplify things, like this talk that Regan's chairing. The simplicity of it is like the beginning, the conception, like the start point, the big bang, the singularity. It's more talking towards that rather than how life grows and flowers and then fades into death.
Well, I think I've brought it up before about conception to the age that you realize you exist. You're just learning all the polarities, all the opposites, um, positive, negative, light, dark. You're learning all these things, but you don't judge them. You're just learning them. If it,
Well, you're
I mean,
in the
if
middle
it's
of them,
really
aren't you?
negative, right, you're going to fight back because it's really negative, right? So kids get weirded out by that. But then once they become their little selves, then the parents take over and they're taught something different, that it means something different. So yeah, that monad thing is probably very important. Just saying.
Yeah. And here it is, super overcomplicated. But really, like, what I want to point out is, like, I have these images, right? The whole folder. There's like 1,500 or something just in this one. Goes on forever. When I scroll through this, as I am right now, you can see it's all kind of rendering crazy. When I scroll through this looking for stuff, I'm not looking at the words. I'm not looking at anything in particular. Maybe colors sometimes, or the basic symbols. That's it. So it's like, really all I see when I'm looking at this picture is this circle with the center. And then maybe I'll add the complexity of like looking at the spiral with a couple numbers or something. But it's looking at just the basics. It's like, stop worrying about magnetism, electricity. All I can tell you is that all of the top scientists in the world, PhDs, all these other people have no idea what magnetism or electricity is. And if they do have any idea of what it is, they'll tell you that they don't actually know what it is. and give you some explanations around what they theorize. When it really comes down to it, it's you're always going to have the basics, just like you do when you start off in your degrees, right? And when you first start off, you start with the basics. When you're a child, it's all just visual intake. You have no idea what language is and all these other things. Your actually two greatest fears the second you're born, your two only innate fears, are heights and loud noise. So your entire interaction is visual. It's completely visual, right? And what do you absorb visually? Well, you absorb the basics, anything when it starts off, a video game, a movie, it has a development. That development comes in phases and degrees and cycles. And similarly, just like this complicated picture, I'm only looking at the basic structure of this pendulum, right? This one line going down through the center with a ball, and it goes back and forth, right? Like, that's the basics of it. Just like breathing in and out. So that's why I don't mind like the inhalation, exhalation, and some of this other stuff here. And then if you do want to get more complex, when you get beyond learning, basic stuff, then you can start getting into the whole, okay, this is what, physics states that magnetism is or electricity is. This group of people have decided that this is what they agree it is. And you have your outliers who have their different theories and things. But, one thing that I'd always want to keep, like, at least for this channel or for what the whole purpose of this thing is to just look at the basic building blocks. Just your simple shapes, line, circle, square. Usually I write it as IAO all over the place. That's like the most basic way to express it.
Yeah, in that picture, I don't know really what it is or anything. Whatever.
This one?
It just what it looks like to me, just looking at it, is your life at the beginning of the vortex and the ending, and all your moods and complications and everything else, like your emotional state during those times.
Oh my God, Linda, that just reminds me like astrology, how like the way the planets move, like it kind of like in that direction, like astrology.
Thank you, me. Yes, just like in astrology. This is your astrological wheel right here. Like
it also shows as well, you can see the vertical points where time has been regularly sort of intervaled out, and it shows as well that time is actually recursive. It's not necessarily just linear, and even the IAO. So of course, interestingly, that also is the Greek letters for what would be, of course, in Hebrew is pronounced as Yah, Yod, He. And what you find with IAO is also it's the onomatopoeic sound that a donkey would make, right? The donkey is an interesting character. For example, in Egyptian, well, I say Egyptian, it's more Hyksos slash Egyptian slash syncretized religious ideas and mythologies, is that the donkey was associated with Set. And Set can be the personification of evil, but it can also be the personification of necessary evil. So you see that Set spears Apep or Apophis as they go, as the barge of Ra goes through the underworld. And so what you're finding is with IAO is it's the same concept, but simply seen within, yes, geometric lines, seen along geometric lines, and also seen along humanistic lines. So for example, the alpha and the omega, the A and the O, The triangle is the generative symbol. The O is the symbol of the infinite. It's of life, yes, but it's also of this sort of nothingness of the void, which is, of course, death. It's both death and life, weirdly enough, right? It's this paradoxical singularity. And the thing that exists or starts at the spark that begins it is the I, the idea, which is Greek for thought. So this relates, of course, to Mark Twain and the mysterious stranger, right? He mentions to him, I believe, right at the end of the book, and he says, I won't meet you again. This is Satan speaking to Theodore Fisher, the protagonist of Mark Twain's Mysterious Stranger. And he says, you know, we're all but a thought in the void, basically, right? That is all we are. So again, it poses many questions, but one of the questions, funnily enough, that you see in Mark Twain's novel, by the way, he was a demitted, meaning an ex-Freemason. He was a Freemason for 8 years in the Pole Star Lodge, I believe, in St. Louis. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. Anyway, he's pointing to ideas that were already present within the mystery religions, going all the way back. It's probably because these things have been. I have a certain theory how they've came about. I don't necessarily think. I know they're ancient. Yes, they're ancient. They're probably primordial, but they still have to have had an author to some degree.
That's the
I
first
think
time I've seen this symbol, the IAO. But just
really,
looking at it, yeah, that's the first time I've ever seen it. Like I said, I don't investigate this kind of stuff. I listen to you, Silas, and Reagan. But my perspective on it, just looking at the symbols themselves, the square would be the I, right? That's the material world. That's when it's all about you, right? And then you enter into the triangle, which is the A, and that is your connection to the spiritual world, but also tied to the material world. And then you enter into the through self, which is very, you see, it, it, it's not, there's just a portion of the triangle that ever does that, right? It's not that, it's,
Well, we could
you have to
read the
touch it.
slide, and you know, it
Yeah.
says right here, you know, the triangle represents the generation of energy and initiative. It is the most stable physical posture. The circle symbolizes unification, serenity, and perfection. It is the
Yeah, but
source
they're
of
never going to give you,
unlimited
they're never going to
techniques.
give you the true meaning of it, right? Or I think all these symbols are supposed to be personal, like how you interpret them or whatever. But if you don't read the words that they give you and just look at them, they can mean, I mean,
Yeah.
you see them for what they actually are. And we talk about this stuff all the time. So,
I think that will give you, of course, that gives you a general idea of what the symbols are. And so, funnily enough, as well, if you look at, because somebody mentioned this recently in the comments when I brought up, I did that video with Zeal on number 47 because he was asking about it, and so we ended up doing a discussion on it. And somebody brought up this, and I wasn't aware of this, which is why I like doing these discussions. And somebody mentioned that the 4 and 7 always produces angles, right? I don't know about that, but I haven't investigated that. But interestingly, while I did a cursory investigation of it, or just I guess a cursory Google search, really,
Is this
not an
what you're talking
investigation.
about, Silas?
That must be it. Yeah, that must be it. That must be it. This also ties in with the Cistercian numbers, funnily enough. And how do we look at that and some of the symbols that you see with that? And extremely interesting. They're basically it's a 13th century sort of cipher, they state. You know, and it came about the time that Arabic numerals were introduced to northwestern Europe, and so it was in this transitionary period between Roman numerals and Arabic numerals. and they produce this sort of cipher numerical system. But a lot of the numbers, funnily enough, are based around these same geometric patterns. But you notice, for example, with 1, the 1 is shown as a sort of a back to front 7, but it looks more like an L. So even with the as Linda stated, with the rectangle or the square, it takes on this crooked form. And the reason it's crooked is because the thought is constantly, it's unaware. It's unaware of itself, hence the crookedness, right? If you were to follow the, visualize yourself being on a, on a, the surface of a cube, right? Everything to oneself as they move around this cube or around this cuboid or whatever it may be, things have abrupt turns. Of course, the crookedness. If you were to think of this in terms of the motion as a thought, the thought itself also has abrupt turns, right? The thought is only as good as the brain that is that can comprehend it, right? Or the brain that can utilize it, or the brain that can make meaning out of it. So, for example, what we see with AI can come up with great things, but it doesn't understand those things may be great. So, because it doesn't understand the meaning within them, right? And so, this is the problem with thoughts. Thoughts can only exist as a source of you'll never see the true essence of the thought, right? The closest thing to the thought is, or the true original essence of it is symbolism, is the visual cues of it, right? This is the idea of Horus, right? The widow's son. The reason you have this idea of the son, of the widow, or even the widow's child, right? The child as well, is that it's something that's innocent. It's something that hasn't been tainted by the world. Therefore, it sees the world as it is. It's closer to God, because of course it's closer to the beginning of life, and of course within the pre-beginning of life, which perhaps we may call death or the void or whatever, wherever we come from, right? So that's the problem with the thought. The thought will always contort these things, because when you're looking at the thought, or understanding it, or pondering it, you're not actually pondering the original essence of that thought. You're pondering the sort of filtered form of it that's already come through your mind, right? For example, you could think of anything, any sort of idea. As soon as you think of that idea, you're not thinking of the idea even impartially. You're always thinking of the idea through the lens of preconceived notions, things that really clutter up your mind, right? So that's why it's crooked. That's why the square is effectively the contorted circle, in that sense. The triangle is almost the square, but not quite. So, you even see this same idea in, I guess of the extrapolation of the thought through the mind, even through the geometry.
Yeah, but even I mean, all those symbols, right, are given to us by man.
Well, yeah, because
So
when I look at these slides, I can either ask myself, what is this slide trying to tell me, right? Or you can look at it from the other way, which is you just looking at it and deciding what it is.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, it's basically again, it's I think it's it's like what you're saying. It's these symbols are canvases. They're pointing to truths, but fundamental. I mean, you could read, like what I was saying, you could read about the symbols and their meanings, but I mean, most of them are half truths, really, in a lot of these tomes. But
Yeah, but there's somebody's truth, right? And this is the
that's
thing,
it.
going
Yeah.
back to the monad from the beginning,
Mhm.
right? If you look at that symbol, there's 12 lines, right? Where's the 13th? Where's the sun? Where are you? You're looking at it.
The
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
And you never
Yeah.
include yourself in
Yeah.
that whole concept, right? It's somebody else's concept.
The
So
extra points
when you
always
include
skipped.
yourself, yeah.
So, hey, Silas and Linda too. I said a couple of things that caught my ear. Pardon me for just jumping in. I don't know how long you
It's
guys have
okay.
been going, but
You're good.
you were talking about when you have a thought and I'll have to paraphrase. I can't remember your exact wording, but you were talking about maybe analyzing the thought or thinking of it, and the question that I've really been examining a lot lately is, what do you mean when you say you are examining a thought? Who is the you that examines the thought?
There you go.
I'm
That's another
I'm
thought.
coming to think that's the most important question, at least for me, that whoever is in there that can realize that we have thoughts, that are aware that we have thoughts, that can analyze them, what is that? And where does that come from? And, I mean, is that, say, your essence, the witness? Some people call it the witness, the observer, consciousness. That's kind of my big interest. It's interesting. I heard the monad mentioned here because I've been looking a lot into Gnosticism lately. But yeah, this idea of consciousness, like, what is
Mhm.
that? What's its relationship to matter? Can they be separated? Does consciousness precede matter? I'm of the opinion now that it does, because we see it in our own lives that ideas typically will precede what is born of the ideas. So that's on a micro level, but why wouldn't it work the same way on a macro level?
Well, you're correct. I've said it. I think I remember we had a debate, and you brought up Ayn Rand. This was years and years back now, and this was when I was pondering the idea that um, consciousness is antecedent to matter, and I remember stating to you, does a forest exist if no one is around, if no sentience is around to experience that existence? And I remember you bringing up I think it was Ayn Rand, and she had the maxim that um, reality has to precede. Pardon me, reality has to be a sort of what would the word be? It has to be independent of consciousness, right? It exists upon um, its own principles, right? It exists in a
That's our first
self-contained
axiom.
thing.
Existence
Exactly.
exists irrespective of consciousness, which
That's the
I
one. Yeah.
disagree with.
Yeah. But this is the thing. It takes a lot to bridge that gap, because effectively what you're facing is the existential dread of the question of who am I, right? And effectively, who am I is another thought. So who am I? I actually can't look at my essence in its original state. What am I? Well, for example, when we answer the question, if I was to ask you, or anyone, or someone was to ask me, who are you? We would start by providing, um, our I don't know, our job history, what we do, our profession, our name. Well, firstly, our name wasn't given to us. Our profession is what our body does, right? You say my arm, my leg. You don't say, you create a distinction with your appendages. So they're things that you use, they're tools, right, of your body. Like the body is a tool itself. But even our language itself, our grammar, sure, it has a possessive sense to it, right? It's genitive. It's my arm, it's my legs, it's my brain. But they things aren't actually you, right? They're not you. They're not they're not that monadic point. They're not the ayin, or the central crux of things. So therefore, you get into the idea of identity. The you itself, we can only know of within the identity. If you're really good at it, you can get, all the way back to the ego. The ego is that thing that, permits the essence to interact with the world, from a mental standpoint. But fundamentally, I mean, the identity, I mean, it's literally in the name. ID, entity, the idea, the thoughts, the idea, the thought from Greek, entity, the entity of thought, right? So it's, yeah, I mean, it really, it brings some really fundamental questions that, quite
But
frankly,
you're
you'll
not
never
your
gain an answer to.
you're not your thoughts either, though. So that's
Yeah,
another thing.
and that's another thing, yeah.
You
So,
have the
yeah,
thoughts, right? But the thoughts
yeah,
aren't you.
Conundrums
Um,
everywhere. What do we do?
yeah, yeah,
This is
exactly, yeah.
this is the paradox that I think Carl Jung talks about all the time. That you have to live in it. You have to realize they exist within yourself, and that's hard to do. And I think some of these symbols try to explain that in a simplistic way if you don't look at the words. But I mean, that's my opinion. But
Well,
they've
oh, sorry,
taught us
Linda.
paradox. We can't live with them, right? But everything's technically a paradox if you actually look deep into it. It really is. Like you're living in lightness and darkness at the same time. Everybody does. That's a paradox. But
But
it
that,
exists.
see, I think that's because we live in these. I was mentioning we were having a discussion today, me and Armin, and it's because power exists because it measures things, right? So, for example, the priest class and the priest kings would, utilize their knowledge of astronomy to understand when the eclipses were occurring. That knowledge put them at an advantage compared to the largely um, uh, ignorant masses, right? Ignorant of at least of astronomy. So permitted them, they could measure the world, and by that measurement, and them having an understanding of how to measure, and that measurement itself, the results, they could control the world, right? By controlling the minds of the masses. So that's the basis of power. That's why they don't want they don't want you having enough leisure time and energy to sit around and understand, firstly, how they control the world vis-a-vis controlling the mind. And then you take that even further back and you go, right, why are they controlling the mind? What are they attempting to do by controlling the mind? If what they say is correct with their materialism, if matter, precedes sentience, if we were birthed from matter, right? As Darwin states, Darwinian evolution states, and such, and of course, material reductionist science, then why are they attempting to control our minds and not just necessarily control matter, which in turn would, of course, control our minds, right? Because, well, you get to it, and it's exactly what Farce has mentioned and what we're discussing here. It's because the thought is that thing which produces reality. It almost creates like a negative feedback loop, meaning it's a closed system. It's homeostatic. It's self-regulating. You both project reality from your mind, and you perceive it at the same time. So that projection perception cycle creates this sort of loop, and it creates a smooth operation of reality, a sort of refresh rate to reality, if you will, right? So it's, yeah, this is what you're getting at, and even the thought is an intangible thing. I mean, the reason writing was, well, wasn't the reason it was developed. I mean, it was developed to control minds, but the reason it took off and people saw the utility in it is because, well, fundamentally, you end up losing the thought. The thought isn't actually, it's not information per se. It's like it's how to describe it. It's like a feeling, right? The thought is a feeling. Any great idea, if you will, great thought, is a feeling. The greatest songs ever written probably were written in breakneck speed because the thought isn't informational. It's a feeling. It's like a perturbation of the field, if you will, right? That is the thought. It's the spark. It generates itself. I mean, any musician will tell you this, any writer, anybody that's done anything creative, even professionals, right, that have created things or whatever it may be, they will tell you this, right? When you're attuned to your body, when you've done something, and become well versed in it, when and your body is attuned in terms of its muscle memory to doing something, let's say guitar or something, right? When you have that creative impulse, you can easily translate those things because you've practiced, and your body has the muscle memory, so does your mind. But fundamentally, the great song, if you will, that was always inside you, and it just came out in one fell swoop. I mean, there was some of the greatest songs ever written, at least in pop or rock or what have you. I don't know about classical music, but they were written maybe in 10, 20 minutes, one sitting. Because these things they're not informational. That's the problem with the technocratic control system. It doesn't take into account any of this stuff. It merely views these symbols as blueprints, rather than seeing them for what they are, which is a blank canvas, as Culty and Linda are stating. They're not meant to be understood. You're not meant to find the destination. You're not meant to grasp the thought. You're not meant to quantify these things. There's a quality within the mystery, all unto itself, Yeah.
Yeah, but it's all unto you, right? With all these symbols. And I think that's why they still exist, because everything leads back to self. And I think they know that. And they have to pass that knowledge on, right? That everything leads back to self, because they can't lose that technology like they did the moon telemetry and that kind of stuff.
It's their password.
This has to go. It's their password. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to speak to earlier with the password analogy, is that it's like you program it in anyway, which is like, I would assume that the all creative force of everything, and however this existence came about from thought into form, that was encoded as well. So it's just imprinted within you. It'll be in your blood, it's in your skin, your fingerprint, your eye, probably in your hair follicles.
Yes, and nature itself is the reminder that your symbol still exists.
But you're
Your
saying
symbol within yourself still exists, because you can go out and look at it every day and find the symbols
you're
in
saying
nature
the
itself.
symbols in the physical body, but I don't believe that to be true. I believe it to be in the spirit, something like unattainable to other people. It's spirit. I don't believe it's physical.
I don't think I was saying the spirit is physical.
I don't think a spirit is physical.
No, I
What
think
makes
it's attached. I didn't say it was physical. I don't think the spirit is physical. That was never
No,
mentioned.
it's just the way you said, like in your fingerprints and things like that.
I'm talking about in symbolic expression. So it's just, you can see it. It's like writing on the wall. It's not that the spirit is a tangible thing. That's the whole point that I'm getting at, is spirit or soul or anything like that is not measurable. It is not, a tangible thing. It's not something that you can like grasp or...
Do you think it's inconceivable?
It's like Mary Poppins' little magic bag where she pulls all her crazy devices out of. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does reverberate through the physical, though, because the physical body itself it's a symbol. See, the symbol
it's like a
itself
picture, though. It's like a snapshot or snapshots.
Exactly.
That are occurring, right?
And I think it was Steiner that mentioned that, you can take a picture of one side of the tree, right? That can be a true picture, but that is not necessarily the full totality of the tree, right? You'd have to take a picture from every side. So ultimately, these symbols, what we're seeing, even our body itself encodes this, but it only encodes it from a certain point of view. It doesn't necessarily, that spirit won't reverberate in all its, for lack of a better word, right? I'm not saying it's measurable, but in all of its dimensionalities, right? In all of the various angles of it can never be truly quantified, right? So within the symbol, what you're seeing is a sort of, think of you're taking all of the knowledge, everything, everything that ever has been or ever will be, and you're putting it into a zip folder. That's basic, and then in that zip folder, you're putting it into another zip folder and another zip folder until you get to, of course, the material realm, right? And you have such compression, such loss of the full totality of it, a simplification of it, right? To thus permit it to be made manifest, that you get to this, right? And of course, I mean, if you were, I don't know, say you were a computer, right? Tracing, and you've got to, in terms of computational power and computational processing, you've got to go through all of these, compressed folders, right? Within compressed folder, within compressed folder, on and on and on and on. Effectively, the further you get down that sort of string of that address of folders, if you will, right? You're going to forget where you are, right? For example, I don't know how everyone else's address box is, right? But if you have a folder pathway, right, and you go down, you have, I don't know, I do myself, so I have like, I think the most I've ever had is I'll have a folder, then I've got like another folder, another folder, another folder, blah 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 blah, on to about 7 folders, right? So you've got this 7 folders in one larger macro folder, right? And you get to a certain point, and the computer just gives up, and it gives you the main folder, then it'll just go dot dot dot, right? Think of that as our conundrum, our dilemma, and why we're constantly saying, who are we? Who are we? Why are we here?
We need to remember.
Yeah.
I think this is why we're all here, right? Because we deleted a bunch of zip folders within ourselves, right?
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
But we're still questioning, well, where are we now? The dot and the ellipses are still there, but we're closer. We're closer to something, perhaps. Yeah.
So does that mean we've been before if we need to remember? Could that be possible?
Well, yeah, it's certainly possible. It's plausible. It's one model of explication. You can. I mean, it's certainly possible. When you get into this territory, anything's possible. Anything that fundamentally answers that question of, well, what are we actually doing here? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Are we going to, reach an epiphany of sorts spiritually? Yeah.
So what are we seeking here?
I think that's
Well,
The
up for
knowledge
you
of
to
good and
find that
evil.
answer.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's only something you can figure out. I mean, I
Can
can
you
tell you
repeat
what
the
I'm.
question because I didn't hear that? Sorry, I didn't hear that. Can you repeat the question?
Oh, I was just saying, so what are we seeking?
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I could tell you what I'm seeking, but I
What are you
think we'd all be
seeking,
different.
Silas?
Uh-oh. Hot seat.
Simply truth. Truth about.
The truth.
Well, right
Uh,
now, I might be seeking a coffee. I might go for a coffee, but
Right, but I
spiritually,
think everybody is
yeah, an
seeking
answer.
their own truth. That's what it
Mhm.
comes down to. Their own truth.
Is
Because
that because
everybody
we
else's
don't know
truth is
truth?
not yours.
Yeah, we don't know. That's
We don't know,
fundamentally
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yep.
That's the only thing you can be sure of, really, in this life. I mean, even the symbols. I mean, we could go. We could speak ad nauseum about what the symbols mean, what various mystery religions tell us, at least the
But
ones that
because
we
we
know
don't know
about.
someone else's truth, like you say, the
You know,
God, like seeking to understand the ultimate truth of the message, you know, like
yeah, yeah,
This is the quintessential question, right? It is the Philosopher's Stone. It is the magnum opus. It is the great work. It's really
Don't forget the monad.
um,
Yep.
the monad, right? It's like, and so these are, in one sense, we can use these as tools to help us answer those questions. Like when we were speaking about when Silas was speaking about the question, "Who am I?" So if you were to tap into the wisdom of a sage like Ramana Maharshi, he would suggest that self-inquiry, asking oneself that question, is the method by which we can answer the question ultimately. But what they find is that's quite complicated, as which has been discussed here, and so they use the kind of a counterintuitive process of negation. We can determine the logic is that we can determine what we are by determining what we're not. And somebody said, "Hey, we're not our thoughts." We can run up against the idea that we're not our emotions, we're not our body, etc. We're not these things. So, if we go through that process long enough, we can arrive at what's left. And of course, once we arrive there, as soon as as soon as you arrive there, you let me know what you figure out, and you know, thank you for blazing the trail before us. But I
yeah.
wanted to bring
So,
up
do you
the.
know the story of Rama Maharshi? Do you know, like, I'm familiar with him and his descendants. Like, apparently, he was like meditating like next to a tree or something, and the tree was dead. And the tree came back to life again, and beings like other worldly gods or deities, they came to Rama Hamashi, and because he was so silent, like they blessed him, and then he obviously became a great like teacher, and like
Ramana
namaskar,
Maharshi,
namaskar.
perhaps we're speaking of two different beings. Ramana Maharshi um, hailed from southern India and was alive at the end of the 19th century into I think the 40s of the 20th century.
Yeah,
And
he's the
he has
teacher
an
of.
ashram in southern India currently, and tens of thousands of people go there every year to hang out in the caves that he meditated in and the ashram that he founded, etc.
Yeah, I'm familiar with him. Like he, Papa G and Muji, they're descendants or disciples of his. Like, but his story, that is a true, like, myth surrounding him. That apparently beings, like, he was so silent, like within himself, like beings actually came to him, like the gods or whatever. They came to him and they blessed him because he was so silent, and there was like a dead tree, and by his vitality, his presence, the tree came back to life. That's like a myth that surrounds him. I'm sure it's him.
Just imagine 50 years from now, you know, a whole myth surrounding Silas. Now, you know, Silas could fly and he would levitate on
Well,
a Scotch whiskey
depends if on the
bottle.
rave
And,
Come
cookies,
on, we
man.
all believe that
Depends,
now. I mean,
but no,
depends if I'm
I'm
on the
saying
rave
is that,
cookies.
you know, in the what is left behind after someone who has left an impression, right? Um, is these myths then extrapolate to sometimes, you know, the fantastical. It's basically people projecting onto that story.
I
Perhaps
thought
the
it
thing.
was beautiful because think
Sorry.
like the tree was dead and withered, you know, and by his silence and like wisdom or energy or whatever, he brought a tree back to life, something that was dead, you
That
know.
that typically shows up in a lot of Buddhist traditions. That this idea of it's almost like the toroidal energy and the sort of bioenergies of things. Biomagnetism, I think, would be the term. And you find that with yeah, jump in, Reagan. Sorry.
I was gonna say it's whenever the East meets the West. That's why I was like putting up this kind of stuff here. You're talking about rebirth. If you and Armin were
Yes.
talking about Frankenstein earlier, that's one of my favorite mainstays to use for all of this type of discussion. So
But the whole point of that teaching, like, is you simply are. That's what it is. Like, for what I've for looking into that, their message is basically you're all like you're simply here. You know, like that kind of thing. It's a bit solipsistic in a way. You know, like but there is like a lot of peaceful energy there.
yeah, it sounds very
within this
similar to the
teaching.
Taoist way, where their main motto or expression was "It is what it is." That was kind of
Yeah.
the basis for their entire religion, for the practice.
I think Friedrich Nietzsche. He also stated that you know, a man is a bridge, not a goal. So it's the same concept. You know, some things are not meant to be understood, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try, because by trying you to understand them, you will unlock a lot of things along the way, and you will unlock experiences that will enhance your life, that will provide you some semblance of comfort. Uh, Perhaps not knowledge, perhaps not truth, but perhaps other things, right? Everything from love to friendship to, you know, good tidings unto all mankind, right? Through, I don't know, charity or alms work or what have you. You may understand, um, you know, a deeper, a sort of deeper semblance of perhaps truth regarding the goodness in man, right? Um, it may make you more impervious to propaganda, right? You may understand the the the, the complexities of how they control us, and thus you can protect yourself, your family from that mind war. But it's like what Armin mentioned as well, right? He was just mentioning there that these myths eventually turn man into a symbol himself, right? And then it's like what you're stating, MME. You know, we 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 have all of these supernatural things that go along with these myths, and of course, people can take them literally, or they can see, or another section of people can see the metaphorical truth in it, and perhaps extract some sort of value that they can then translate into their own life in some way. Um, it's the same thing with these symbols as well, right? I mean, man is a bridge, not a goal. It's the same notion. Man is meant to be a collector of experiences, rather than, of course, the experience in and of himself.
So can we make symbols? So people who have came before us and they have created symbols to express deeper things that they've came into knowledge or whatever. But who's to say that us as individual beings having
No,
this
you are the
experience?
symbol. Your life itself is a symbol. I don't know about yourself, but to me, my life is a mystery. This is why I get on these discussions and speak with all you guys, fundamentally because I don't know. So I'm bouncing ideas of people to get to a deeper sense of effectively why I'm here. What the hell is this thing, right? So life is a mystery. My life, your life, everyone's life is a symbol. We are the international man of mystery, or the international woman of mystery, right? We are the myth. Our life is our own monomyth. We are the god within our life. Our life itself forms that mythology. Now, again, we can either identify with synthetic ideas or mind characters or shadows. We can project our agency, our godhood, if you will, onto these, anchors or tether points. We can, use the mooring rope of our ideas and our mind to convince ourselves that we have to give our agency over to, I don't know, this religion or this thought, this control mechanism or whatever it may be. However, fundamentally, it's always our choice, because fundamentally within our space, our perceptual space, we are the axis mundi. We are the pillar of the world. And we are, of course, the anima mundi, the spirit of the world. You cannot, it's like what we're saying about the symbols, right? This is what it's proving. You can't understand the world the way I see the world. You can only understand the world the way you see the world, or this goes for anyone, right? Our world is just that, our world, right? Um, we, the way that we view the world, even if we are viewing it through the eyes of a guru or a priest or an imam or a rabbi or whatever it may be, a teacher, fundamentally we're still, even though we're being sort of perhaps manipulated, we're still viewing it through our own eyes. We're still interpreting it through our own lens. We are the god of the world. Effectively, we create the world, or we create our world at least. So, yeah, we are the symbol. We are the symbol. We don't even understand ourselves. We're the microcosm of God. If we can't understand ourselves and we're made in the image of God, what does that tell you of God? So it's this pathway, this thread, this daisy chain of confusion, But again, I don't think we view it as confusion. Perhaps it's not confusion. Perhaps it's meant to be this way. Because again, if we just understood everything, you would have no motion. Everything would be static. There'd be no point in life. You would just return to the void, right? If you understand all of this, there's no point of learning anything through experience. So life is this sort of bittersweet thing. It's meant to be. It has to be, I think, in some ways. Yeah.
So, hey, Silas, real quick, or everybody in the room, is there, just to catch me up since I came in late, what is the understanding here? Is there a consensus about the monad, what it means to everybody? Is everybody on the same page with that?
Yeah,
Well,
you'd have to ask the whole room that, or go back and listen to the beginning for what I was breaking down, why I'm doing all of this.
So if you were the catalyst to the discussion of the monad, what is your understanding of it then?
Well, my understanding is that it's not specifically the monad. I was using it as a particular point to make that all symbols are the same and they operate. Hold on a second. Sorry. I was just using it as a point to start the discussion. So, like, the whole basis behind this channel, the reason why I do these presentations and everything is to break down that symbols are a personal perception. They're subjective. It's all very individual. It's all individual experience, and the only shared aspect of it is our communication, where we reflect off each other in discussion and interaction and confrontation and all of these other things. So does that make sense?
Yes, it totally does to me. I was just going to throw this in first. The symbols are our persona as we interpret them of ourselves.
To
Well,
me, just
maybe this is where I was a bit lost. So is it the idea that there is a symbol referred to as monad, a specific symbol?
oh no,
Maybe.
it's the Monas Hieroglyphica, which is John Dee's. That's what it started out with. So the Monas Hieroglyphica is the that there. So it's as you can see the solar, what the Gnostics would understand as the solar monad, but it's also sort of attached with, of course, the moon, the various elements, also Venus as well, and Jupiter, Saturn, all of that as well is contained in this unity of the union of the opposites, the coincidentia oppositorum, or the union of the whole. I mean, Armin was mentioning in our discussion this idea of the perfect unity, the sacred marriage of also seen as the tree of life as well. You know, the singular one. Monad, of course, from the Greek unity, or just simply one, or inferring this notion of it's alone. Again, like the thought within the void, that idea. It also, of course, looks like a seed. That's another thing. But the way I describe it, which is it's effectively God, is that it's
also looks like a flower.
It does look like a flower as well. Yeah, yeah. Looks like many things. Yeah.
A person.
Yeah. The monad is the pure potential, undifferentiated and unmanifested. So it's basically the singularity of everything that's contained within a nothingness. Not nothingness as in it's, there's nothing there, right? Everything's there, it's in that singular point. But to us, to perceptual beings, we only perceive things based upon delineation of form and boundary and such. I don't see myself the same as you, for example, and neither would you see me as you, and so on and so forth. This is where this idea of the you comes from, right? You can also see it as the traditional sense of the ego, right? The I. So the I is distinct from the circle, the zero, the monad, because fundamentally, it'd be a funny old world if we saw ourselves as all part of this, the same sort of God essence, or what God particle, or whatever you want to describe it as. But yeah, so from the seedbed of nothing came everything. It's that notion, really.
Something that I find quite interesting, like if you go on TikTok or whatever, or study various things, it all tells you, that keeps on saying you're God. So it's like the outside is like telling the presence you're God.
There's also the Lucifer. That is a Luciferian idea. If you look at it as you are the material God, that's how a lot of people see it. When I say, for example, you are God. I mean it in the psycho-spiritual sense. I'm not saying you know, don't try and nobody try and fly off a building or anything like that. You know, you're not Superman, but so you're not materially God, but in a so you're still bound by the elements, right? By the cross, the crucifix, in that sense, as was Christ. Hence the whole mythology. But
But as a but as a god, you are a creator, right?
you are the co-creator or the creator, yeah, of your own world, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And would
Yeah.
God need to become unbound?
What do you mean? Oh, from the material vessel? No, see, again, this is for me, this is a Luciferian concept. See, I think life is meant to be experienced. It's meant to be lived. I think that is the, you know, to be is itself a sort of worship of God. You know, by you simply experiencing life to its fullest, you are worshiping the divine. In a sense, I don't mean the fullest as in, you know, do what all of these crazy transgressive secret society cult members are doing, but you know, if you are living life to the fullest and you're living in equilibrium with yourself and with the world around you, and with, of course, and you have a family, you have that sense of love and shared community. You know, you're basically doing God's work. That is the good word, if you will, right? But no, I don't think you have to be materially detached. In fact, I think that's a transgressive principle, in my opinion. I think it's a Luciferian principle. I don't know what anyone else would think about that. This idea of becoming, you know, a material god, as we see the system wanting.
Yeah, well, in my opinion, the separation or the view of a separation, and when I say separation, is not that they're the same exact nature; it's that they shouldn't be connected, of matter and spirit, is indeed, you know, not just a transgression; it's an error, in my opinion. Because even if we were to if we are to consider, like we were previously, or you guys were previously, that thought precedes the manifestation, which of course makes sense. So first there is the potential of something, then there is the thought, and then that something emerges. And we can see that even if, you know, you are about to do a drawing, right? So first you have the thought, then you apply that, you know, your pencil to the paper, and the drawing manifests, right? So that would make sense. So the two things are supposed to be integral to each other. There is a service that matter is performing for the spirit, and of course there is a service that spirit is also performing for matter, if matter allows it. And I think that the separation of matter and spirit is exactly one of the, let's say, problems, if you want to put it like that, of the collective, of the mankind's collective. It's this separation, this idea, either because you become too materialistic, or because you become too detached from the actual material reality that is going on. So neither of these extremes are beneficial, in my view.
And interestingly as well, this sort of segues into um, something I found in my ebook library there, and I've posted it here. You may find it interesting first if you're looking into Gnosticism or any of this stuff, especially to do with the monad. And it was it's called monad, the monadology, and it was written by Gottfried William Leibniz in 1714, and he mentioned that he mentions this quote: the monads have no windows through which anything could come in or go out. So this is the idea that you're mentioning, Armin, you know. Accidents cannot separate themselves from substances, nor go about outside of them as the sensible species of the scholastics used to. Thus, neither substance nor accident can come into a monad from outside. And then he goes on to describe the monad in even greater detail. But the idea is with that is that you know, the monads have no perception. It's the same idea, so it doesn't delineate things. It's not extant within that sort of dualistic fragmentary paradigm, like exactly what you're saying up here, right? The monad is that central crux. It's the all, but the all within a sort of self-contained sense, right? So you know, each monad contains a mirror of the entire universe within itself, and so in that sense, that I mean, I think he actually discusses this later on, but I don't know if he uses this term. I don't think he does, but he basically describes it in a way that's similar to this that we see within biomagnetism. Reagan has a few, or he's showed a few of this, these toroidal or vortical sort of storm shapes. And by the way, this is why at the head of every pantheon is the storm and war deity. That's one of those things, and you even hear it in the old Prince of Persia games, not the old ones way back. What was his name? Forget his name,
PlayStation 2
Jordan or something.
version.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the PlayStation 2 version, but the older ones are on the SNES, and that my father used to play them. Anyway, within the Sands of Time, which is the first of the reboot on PlayStation 2, there's this really, really poignant quote, and it stood out to me even when I was playing this when I was like 8 years old, and I was like, wow, that's some deep shit. Obviously, I never said it in quite those terms. I didn't know that terminology back then. But anyway, he mentions that, you know, some people believe that time flows sure in one direction, but they are wrong. I have seen the face of time, and it is a storm. Exactly this, right? Exactly the spiral as well. And so this is the monad. This is the three-dimensional representation, of visualization, if you will, of the monad. It doesn't look like this per se, but this is how mechanically you
based
can
on
visualize
3D
it.
physics.
Exactly. So it's a universe that's in a self-referencing loop, which basically states that effectively, for that to be the case, every single point within the universe, ourselves, we are the nodes of that universe. They themselves have to be a universe unto themselves, have to be a monad unto themselves. So within each of us is contained the data of the whole, which is the monad. So when I say that we're all gods, I mean we're all monads, effectively, right? In that
Well,
sense.
yeah, it's interesting that you're referring to it as plural because I've just gotten into this recently, but I've really been there's a channel I'll post it later called Gnostic Library that I've just been trying to, I've been so fascinated with all of this stuff, and that was my introduction to the word, but it's almost like ineffable, indescribable. It's like because to name it limits it. It's neither big nor small. It has no preference. It cannot command because to command something implies a separation between who's commanding and who's being commanded. It has no preference. I mean, it's just like, you can go on and on with trying to describe something that's boundless, eternal, infinite. And of course, we have a lot of trouble with that because we are bound by mortality and the space, whatever our boundaries might be, that as far as we can go, we can't see past a certain thing or imagine past a certain thing. So that's kind of my understanding of there would only be a singular, the monad, which Noble might could help me out with this. If it's the Buddhist or Hindu, the Brahman, the idea that there's no temples to Brahman because Brahman cannot be imagined or named or pinned down because it's the all that is, everything. Encompasses everything we can see, imagine, and exponentially more. And it kind of like, if I was going to say there would be a creator, which I'm firmly convinced that there is of some kind, Gnostics go further, and it's a little bit possibly really not demoralizing necessarily, but their idea is that the quote God of this world is in some ways kind of a cosmic accident. He created this material reality in an incomplete way that's fundamentally flawed, and who we would recognize as the God that is the only God that shall have no other gods before me is kind of a minor character, but with the powers of creation through the material, but nevertheless a flawed character that created a situation that he can dominate. And because
Well, I
it
think
kind of
that would be us as that God.
well,
We would
it makes a
create
lot
that.
of sense because it resolves a lot of contradictions in what I call, any traditional religion or sort of thing. Like why would say a monad type entity that is infinite and all and everything and has no, just emanates, let's say, as opposed to speaking things into creation. I mean, is limitless. Why would they say I'm a jealous God? You should have no other gods before me. I mean, these are kind of like there's so many contradictions just
My
logically in
my
traditional religion.
my favorite
Can,
one
can I
far
just
is sorry,
can I
Linda,
chime in
please.
just real quick because we're going to get past my point. Can you go back, Reagan, to the slide or whatever, the file that had the salt and the mercury? Yes, that one. When I was looking at that one, if you look at the salt, salt is solid. It's something you can physically touch. It's also the tasty bits of the world, right? Everybody adds salt. If you go to mercury, mercury is fluid. It's the flowing bits of the world. You got to go with flow. And then when you get up to sulfur, right? Sulfur is stinky, at least the material sulfur, right? But it's also um, the spiritual, wouldn't you think? Because it's a gas. So that whole picture right there is still pointing back to the monad. Just saying, they all relate to
Yeah.
the same thing. I just wanted to get that out there before you
Yeah.
guys
And also you can see it with the sort of so sulfur is fire, mercury water, salt salt is earth.
Oh yeah, you
Um
could analyze it down to every
yeah,
bit, right? That's what I'm
yeah,
saying. It's the all. It's the all
yes.
right there. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to mention farce. My favorite one is in Genesis where God is meant to be omniscient, right? Now, of course, some have said, well, there's a certain aspect in Kabbalah which states that there's a secret to Genesis and that Yahweh basically put the snake into the garden, the serpent into the garden, because of course Yahweh consorts with the demonic spirits, lion spirits. Um, so he wanted that to occur, right? There's certain theories regarding that. I've posited a few on the server, but my favorite one is supposedly he's omniscient, yet after Adam and Eve eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and they realize they're naked, they're hiding behind the tree, right? I think it's Adam's hiding behind a tree or something, right? And God calls out, Adam, where are you? So you know
Can't find
the
him.
Yahweh
He's
Yahweh Elohim
omnipresent,
is
but I can't
omniscient.
find Adam.
Do you know
Yeah.
We didn't
something
have
interesting about that story, right?
Mm.
Is they were walking in the garden and then they heard the voice, but what if that was their own consciousness? You know, like they were naked or whatever, like they were unconscious or whatever, but then like consciousness switched on or something,
I-
like self-awareness or something like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's basically what you're saying there, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry,
I would
Farsty.
agree with that. Yeah.
Please finish your point.
Oh, I don't know that I had a point. I'm just yeah, this kind of there's so much stuff in the I guess the Gnostic. If you take any of the Nag Hammadi scrolls seriously in these discoveries of the whatever the Apocryphon of John, Epistus of Sophia, and all these lost Gnostic things that were supposedly purged by the Catholic Church, because and it resonates with me a lot because it's all about you know your own journey, self-reliance, unmediated by middlemen of any kind, authority and whatnot. It's very anti-authoritarian, and it's all about your personal experience and being actualized and realizing the connection, basically in your own space on your own terms, which that resonates with me a lot. But it just flips so much of what I've, and not that I'm not, I wouldn't consider myself a Christian. Let's say I grew up in a Christian church, Baptist. I went to Catholic school. I know all the mythology and the stories and everything and the takeaways that we're supposed to get out of this stuff. But the Gnostic picture just flips so much of it on its head and is completely reinterpreted and imagined all this stuff in a much different way than what we probably imagine we know about it, if any of this is true. But to my way of thinking, it makes a lot more sense, and it's a little bit uh, there is a supernatural aspect to it. You could say of say uh, gods, demons, not necessarily demons, but whatever. It other levels of consciousness that may have an influence on the way how this place runs. And if I look at it in those terms, and I'm like, there definitely seems to be a linearity, an unbroken chain of the way the world operates. That from a, if it were to be created by a benevolent and compassionate entity, it wouldn't have such a long-lasting and uninterrupted chain of the opposite happening and the opposite people being in control of the situation for so long. That really doesn't make sense if it's based on love and compassion and everything. I mean, I can certainly see how it could be based on a flawed cosmic accident, and it is functioning exactly as it was designed to be. But we've just been really misinformed about what that function is.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that last bit. It's a mass campaign to misinform, in my opinion, right? Mass psychosis of sorts.
Yeah, but it's also a way for yourself to how do I explain this? It comes back to this drawing right here that I've never seen before, by the way, till today. Like I said, I don't look into these. Um, the salty bits. It's like, are you going to accept the solids that they give you?
Well, that's what I'm questioning here. I think
Yeah.
that's the primary purpose is to question what's being given. And that's why I like to go back to the basic symbols all the time, because the basic symbols, like no matter what, if all knowledge and civilization ceased to exist right now and it went back to, a handful of people, a group of people, I don't think everything would be developed exactly as it is today, but it would be very similar. And infants will draw triangles, squares, and circles, lines, swirls, spirals. These things will naturally come about. Things will be developed. How, the mind works and operates here in this environment and with the elements and the forces of nature, people are going to develop in a similar fashion no matter what. They're going to build structures. What it's built out of may be different. How their power is, done might be a little bit different. But it all essentially works on the same basic principles no matter what, right? As far as I can tell. I mean, as far as I've experienced.
I mean, like principles such as
The basic shapes, Farce, that's all I'm going to go back to. Circle, square, triangle.
oh, okay.
They're as basic as you can get, right?
Well, one of the interesting things I came across in one of these videos I've been looking at was he quoted a study. I haven't verified this, about kids who were asked to draw pictures before they had gone and been in school, and it was just the riot of colors, different shapes, different things, kind of almost not unlimited, but a wide variety of all kind of different things that the kids will draw. But after a year after a year in school, it's square houses with windows with crosses and a yellow sun in the sky, and red roses and blue skies, whatever. They develop a homogeneity after like the first year of being in school, and that kind of, to me, that sort of paints a picture of how maybe one of the principles of how at least the powers keep their strangleholds on the world, and at least the way they think, and this level of conformity that's induced, right? Because we have a before and after picture if the study is actually true. That once the kids are subject to this classroom with rows and the bells and the teacher and the instruction and everything, then they fall into this easily categorized and labeled group of boxes where they can be shuffled into their proper place in life, right? Yep. So that's why I'm always a little bit curious about what people might mean when they say the natural man, or if we went back to the beginning, how do we know what that looks like at this stage? It's really, really hard to imagine what.
Oh, sorry, man. Please finish your point.
No, I was done. I was just trailing off.
No, when they talk about the Adam Kadmon, basically what they're talking about is this notion of the primordial man. And I know perhaps that's not what you're speaking to, but when they're speaking of that, what they're speaking of is the union of opposites with that monas hieroglyphica, or even the idea of the God or the all, right? So through a sort of, and I was mentioning this to Armin, through this sort of Frankensteinian process that we see with biodigitalism and even biodigital convergence, what they're seeking to create, and you see this interestingly with Curtis Yarvin's work, and even Nick Land, who are sort of one of them, Nick Land, he's affiliated with the alt-right, I do believe. Curtis Yarvin is a sort of atheistical Jew, but both of them are for effectively biodigital convergence, right? And so what they state is that we should have, similar to Harari, a sort of internet of all things, that we exist in cyberspace. So effectively, we become the monad of our own measurable, material, digital realm. And through this, they believe, we achieve the primordial man state, which the primordial man is where you become you go beyond that idea that I was mentioning with the monads, right? The monad of monads, right? Where you become the transcendent principle that controls all of the nodes. So you're outside of the loop, if you will. It's this concept, but basically, when they talk about the primordial man, that's what they mean. That's
Yeah,
fundamentally what they mean.
but that is already an image. And if you project
Reality.
any kind of image that defines the primordial man or the beginning or the whatever, you're not living it. You know, the only way. I mean, even today in the conversation, you asked me, what would it look like, right? In the, you know, being the organic man. Let's say, what would it look like? And what I answered you was, I don't know. There is no way to know. The only way is to live it, right? You make it. And of course, in the same way that we, in one way or another, were led to this point in time and in our lives as well, and so on and so forth, with all the twists and turns, ups and downs, and so on and so forth, we can also reach the organic by living it. The thing is, first, we must leave vacant, so we shouldn't replace a false image with another image that is necessarily, by just the fact of being an image, false as well, right? So what we should do is, okay, you've detected that this is false, you let it go, and you leave the space vacant so that you can live it. And as you live it fully, you discover it. It becomes self-evident, because truth is that. Truth is self-evident. It doesn't need an explanation or a drawing or a symbol or a word or whatever. It doesn't need to be taught. Truth just is. It's there, right? And that is, I think, the what everyone tries. You know, everyone has something to sell in that sense, and that also links to economics. Has something to sell in the sense of an image of what it should be, right? And we see this in all walks of life and all fields and everything. Everyone has this ideal of sorts of how it should be, even if they say, well, it is how it should be. This system that we have now is how it should be. Even if it's that, it's still nonetheless an image. So what I think, you know, answering a bit directly the Fars's question is, leave it blank and live it. You know, as you live it, it becomes self-evident to you, and that question ceases because the answer becomes your life. It comes to you naturally.
Yeah, this reminds me of fill in the blanks, right? How many times have you heard that in your life? Fill in the
Yes.
blank. Yep.
Yeah,
You
leave it
create the
blank.
blanks. You have to fill it in with your own perception of this reality, and that will change because your blanks. It's like the Scrabble game, right? With the blanks and that kind of thing. It's like
Mhm.
you are constantly getting rid of something and leaving it blank and filling it back in. And then you're leaving something else blank and filling it in. And eventually, you may get to the answer of yourself. Because I don't think you can get the answer of this whole reality. I think you can maybe get the answer to yourself.
To yourself, yes, of
Yeah.
course, because if you know, previously when the monad as a singular was the subject, what has to be understood, in my opinion, is that if the monad is all of the potentials, right, we can't be all of the potentials. We are, let's say, a set of those potentials in an individualized manner, but we are not the whole thing, nor are we supposed to be the whole thing, right? So the best and the most, and you know what we are, let's say, quote unquote, supposed to do is discover that set of potentials that we have as individuals, and the rest is up to the others. Each of us represent different sets of those of that entire set of potentials of call it monad or whatever you want to call it. I actually don't like the word monad, but that's beside the point. It's just a word.
Pick a different word.
But yeah, it doesn't matter.
That's kind of my point this whole time. It doesn't really matter. You can use words. You just have to describe your meaning. You have to give the depth behind
Right.
the word of why you're using it and how you feel about it. There's
yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, the word is going to limit it. Once you've named it,
always.
it's limited
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And that's why, as you know, Farce, one of my mottos for several years has been "Truth speaks no words," because I think that honestly, and this is from experience, the moments of clarity that I've ever had were always wordless. Were always moments when there was no language, no, and when I say language, it's not even image, because you could consider that image is a language too, if you like. So there wasn't even image, there wasn't language of any sort. It was just there, and that is why I say, and of course, it might be for me and not for you, but that's why I say, leave it blank. Because if you leave it blank, then truth can come. Because I have this I don't know, idea, if you like, that truth is constantly, because it's part of our nature, it's constantly trying to reach us, and it's us that keep evading it, right? And we keep evading it because we fill the blank with something that isn't true, right? So
This
if
is
we
the
leave
knock
it,
at the door. Would you say
sorry,
the knock at the door? Would this be the knock at the door? Biblically speaking.
that's well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you again going into Regan's point. Yeah, you can read it that way. So yeah,
Choose whatever fits you best. Yeah.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Everything
can,
that's put out there in this realm, in this regard, right? Religions, science, whatever, is all pointing back to yourself. And people take it literally. They take it
Yeah,
outside themselves. So
I entirely
those
agree with
people are never going to see anything knowledgeable about it, ever.
Nope. No, people even go out in the streets yelling about it so much in these crazy beliefs. Which, I mean, I think we've shown there's a bunch of paid actors out there as well, but it influences other extremes to exercise that.
You were going to say, Forrest?
Yeah, go ahead, Farce.
Oh, well, I had a joke I wanted to interject about when I think about the knock at the door. I think of Walter White, but that's another thing. Um, but, Reagan was talking about paid actors and this whole fakeology community that we've been involved in. And I'm coming to realize, oddly enough, without any sense of existential dread, that that's just like the kindergarten version of fakery, recognizing the media fakery and the news stories, the crisis actors. I mean, I'm almost getting towards the point where I look at everything that I used to consider to be, quote, reality is fake to some degree. And that's a whole other level,
Yeah, you went through a great Negretto. Where's that at? The negations.
Well, right, yeah, right. And one of the other things I've been looking into recently is
there you go.
the idea of the alchemy being more about development and integration of the psyche and the spirit and the shadow self. It connects to Jung, and I mean, all this stuff is so intertwined now. The way that I'm seeing it, it's fascinating, very interesting. But it's, like Linda said, it's all about your internal personal journey, Ulysses, the hero's journey, the dark night of the soul, all that stuff. It's like it's us, what we're doing. I mean, I guess if we're paying attention, you might
Yeah,
want,
if
want to
you're not
be
aware of
really
it, right?
actualized.
You're just
Go
playing the game,
US.
right? Blissfully unaware.
Reagan, from all your symbols that you've studied and searched, have you actually uncovered something like cracked a code or something? Because obviously you study all this and you're really good at this, but have you uncovered something that you want to share with us?
Oh, like the key to
I like
life,
that question.
the fountain of youth.
No,
Is that what you're looking for?
El Dorado. El Dorado.
have you actually came across anything profound? Or
Yeah, the
obviously
key to life,
feel
you
it if
can
you
always
had
make
to.
copies. Just go to your local
Obviously
locksmith,
you
right?
you're seeking something into it, and it is exciting. It is kind of like the Da Vinci Code, but surely you must have uncovered some sort of sacred truth, or something quite magical, or something for all your searching, have you? Surely it's not just all been a brick wall.
I don't see it entirely as a brick wall, unless you want to look at it in the way of, each thing you come across is like building a wall, brick by brick, which is how you build a home. No, the
Isn't
most
the answer
profound
42?
most profound thing is I can't express it in words. Like Farsh said a million times, like once you name something, you kill it. And that's the thing too. It's not something that I have a name for anyways. I don't think it's something I want to name. And I think it is the thing they talk about in the movies all the time, like all the tales of Indiana Jones, right? And it's the covenant of the Ark of Truth, or the Ark of the Covenant, and
A quest.
the Holy Grail, right? Which is Arthur and Merlin as well, which I have stated many times. I would refer to it as the Arcturian tales. That is the most profound thing, is that words will never describe what this is. Like, you have to go experience it for yourself.
Would you ever write a book about your journey, traversing through all the mysteries and the symbols, and would you ever turn your work into a book? I think you could translate all your findings into some sort of adventurous story,
Well, I'm working on some sections for a new book for someone else. Or, I don't know if we're ghostwriters or if we're full-on writers for it. He could tell you himself. But I've thought about putting together something. The only thing about me is it wouldn't be anything too elaborate other than some compilations like this, and just kind of describing my own personal view, and maybe the journey that I went through, and what I've discovered over the years, how things went.
Do you think the symbols are like
I mean,
stargates that you run through
Well, it's just
to decode them?
my preferred way of transferring information. That's what you can be a visual learner. You could be, all text. You can learn through audio, which I think we all learn through all these different ways. Everyone's uniquely different. Me, preferably, it's through kinesthetics, which is actually experiencing stuff. That was always, when I was young, the whole school system was a terrible, terrible place for me. To sit in a desk for hours and listen to somebody else talk at you, that was the worst form, in my opinion. I learned out, with my dad in the garage, or we built a shed when I was 5 years old, and I learned all the basic tools and structure and cement, actually laying foundation. And a lot of that stuff has led to this same type of work I'm trying to break down for everyone as well. You know, it really comes down to all these basics of understanding yourself. You know, and a lot of people don't like to look at themselves, and I think it's even harder if you add the complexities. So if you start jumping right into ego deaths and Dante's Inferno and all of the shit that's been programmed to scare the living hell out of people, they generally turn away. It's generally not treated or welcomed, you know, with open arms. So I've always made it a point, even in my profession, what my body of work is, as Silas said, or any other venture I've taken, to break things down to their basics, to make the communication simple. Because communication, even with all these avenues we have right now, all these various email, text, fax, print, messaging, you know, 50 different apps to message each other now. Communication's never been worse. It's never been worse, right? But yet you have all these avenues. And so I think that's like, that's wild to me. That's actually something that is profound in itself, in my opinion, to stumble across. I think people are semi-aware of it. It's joked about in mass media. It's thrown in your face to some extent. But it is kind of like that white elephant, laughable joke, ha, slap your knee and move on, where really it's kind of the deep-seated problem that everyone's just ignoring. And so it's, you know, it's this really simple thing where it's like, well, if we could actually communicate with each other to some extent, you know, I think it would be a lot easier for everyone to come about learning about themselves, coming upon their own individuality, which would just lead to like a better world and make things better from my view. Like I don't think that's, you know, too far-fetched. I only give things plausibility. It's not that I absolutely believe this or that. I really don't hold to beliefs, to be honest. I really just have thoughts, I think. I think belief itself is its own,
like you said,
delusion. Yeah, experience is that's the only tangible part.
Do you think ultimately we all will all become advanced communicators? Like that is the whole goal of the technology that's been given to us. Like and even like in the Bible, it talks about bringing the word to all the whole of the earth, like to bring understanding, like knowledge, wisdom, or whatever, like to people, and then people will communicate to the highest degree or the best way because it's programming into it, you know, like or is it?
I mean, it could. That's why I say it's plausible. And there's many stories about it. I mean, as you were saying that, I was kind of thinking of the Tower of Babel story, because that's what it sounds like, right?
Are you
Is that
talking
one?
psychic communication or language communication?
Does it matter?
I think it does.
I think
That
the
just
more
shows you there's an
important...
adversary though, because obviously humanity was unified and a force opposed that and wanted everybody like divided and not be able to like understand each other and all this kind of thing. Like and that like that relates to that story, doesn't it? But no, it
Well,
seems like what
I was just thinking of nature itself, right? I mean, every source of nature has its own communication, right? The birds talk differently than the cats and the squirrels and everything else, but yet they tend to communicate with each other
Still
somehow.
harmonious.
Well, it's probably an energy, right? It's probably not a language itself. It's probably an energy.
some people have pet birds, but like some people are really good with animals and things. Like and they can communicate with the animals and things, like they have a kinship with them, you know, like
Dog
even
whisperers.
they talk about like know how the gurus at India and all that, like if you're a total enlightened master, you can like go in a forest
The
with
kids
lions
already
and they
know
won't
this
attack you.
language.
Yeah, been doing
I
that
mean,
since
kids,
childhood.
You know, speaking of animals and the, let's say the ethereal, I don't know if any of you've seen these like Instagram reels or whatever, but these animals saving their masters and stuff from imminent catastrophes. The animals are just one step ahead to drag a baby out from under a falling tree or drag the master off of you know, a balcony when a car is coming into it and I'm about to crash into it. Like 8 or 10 little incidents where the animals this ESP, which they look real enough to me, but I find that very interesting that think that animals might have some sort of quote sixth sense about them that allows them to have some level of precognition or something.
Supposedly, my grandmother was saved by her first Yorkshire Terrier. She was drowning at the end of a dock that she jumped off the boat to jump onto the dock to actually pull it in, and she hit the post and fell in face down, and the dog ran out, jumped in, pulled her to the shore, and the dog running out alerted people in the house that this had happened and ran out and saved her from there.
Was it like the dog saw it happen or just knew that it happened?
It was in
was
the
there any
house, so it couldn't have seen her, like with the angle.
Oh,
and,
okay, right.
Yeah,
right.
it was like
Yeah, gotcha.
they were very shocked that the dog jumped up, ran out the door. You know, they had like whatever doggy door or sliding door was open, and outside, and yeah.
That's a lot of work for a Yorkie.
Well, yeah, those are small dogs.
Yeah, it's super doggy strength.
Yeah.
well, I mean, I can
That's
tell you that
awesome.
my blind beagle still knows when a cat walks by the house. It still knows. I mean, it has these senses that
Right.
is
The ears
unbelievable.
perk every time. Right.
Yeah, every time, and and he barks still at sounds that we don't even hear. So, yeah.
Yeah, the extrasensory sound, I'm sure, contributes in many ways too. You know, that extra hearing, different decibel levels. Um, and even like a lot of that stuff I still question because they measured it in the science world, and you know, they tell you that animals can only see certain colors or colorblind, or they only can hear this or that. How do you really know? How do you
It's
know?
like people with spiritual gifts as well. Like if you look at Mel Gibson's film Apocalypto, like the girl who sensed the invaders were coming, you know, like she cussed the bad guys or whatever, like she sensed them. Like we do have these powers, you know, but obviously we're so far removed from ourselves and nature and each other. We don't live in tribes anymore. We live in a dystopian kind of machine world, you know, but like human beings are tribal, you know, we're supposed to
Yeah,
be
I
together.
think all of the technical progress, quote unquote, that has been done for us to communicate better, it's really just broken it down even like worse and worse and worse, like progressively worse. Yeah.
I don't think the technology's like disconnected us, because obviously people are coming together through the technology, but obviously then there's like the media or people with propaganda, like hate this side or that, and division and all this and all the brainwashing stuff, you know, like. But I do think that there is it's a good and bad side to the technology, but it definitely is magic. Like think of the geniuses, like who actually created these devices, satellites, all the like technology, like it is absolutely advanced and it is next level. Like it's magic. It's a black mirror. This is what this is. This is a magic, and nobody can deny that. You know, like
I mean, is this magic, or was it magic when we
yes,
could all communicate? When we could all communicate before this, you
telepathically.
know,
Do you think we did like somebody told me that that could be possible that like you could telepathically communicate. Do you think before we were invaded by aliens? This is just my theory. Like I do believe we've been invaded by aliens. We live in the alien planet. Um, like this is their technology and things. Like maybe they're civilizing the humans. I don't know, but like do you think before obviously we got maybe took away for tribes, we talk about all the 12 tribes in the Bible, think we did have that connection as human beings, like we could telepathically commune with each other and live in tribal, dancing around the fire and all this kind of, and then like um we got
I have no idea, but
away.
like, you know, they used to communicate these for some reason, you know, we all have the same ideas from way back when, uh, like these biblical ideas are in all these religions. So how did they get there? How did they originate? Somehow they were communicated without computers and technology, and you know what I'm saying? Or
Smoke
it's a different
signals.
technology. What?
They're doing it with big smoke signals, just like Lord of the Rings.
Or that they could simply be based on reality, and no matter where they were experiencing the same reality.
Hmm.
Yeah, it could give credence to that.
Yeah.
That's why it's hard to ever really be like, you know, this is the absolute answer, right? Just like I got this stuff up
Right.
from Hitchhiker's Guide with 42 is, you know, the ultimate answer to life that the AI gives them. Um, you know, it's like
It's funny that absolute has salute in the word.
salute, yeah,
Like
like follow
salute. Yep.
orders,
Yep.
right? And that's why it's like, you know, sorry, I'm a rebel. I don't follow orders very well. But I can take everything into account. I don't have any problems whatsoever to listening to each and every theory, you know, all the different perspectives. And like looking through all the religions, you know, how did they develop? I think like anything, any business, they develop just like any other company, right? It's, you know, copy and paste. They've been copy and pasting. And when I say they, I mean everyone.
Yes.
We all do it. That's how you learn.
Yeah.
You literally
Exchanging
copy and
ideas like
paste.
what we're doing
Yeah,
right now.
I said this many years ago that we are the they, and a
Right.
lot of people fought me on that one. It's like we are the they, we are the they that you're talking about. It's like they. Who's the they? You are the they.
Like that's why
You are.
Yeah.
I presume I can't say for an absolute, but if you were to take away all the knowledge, take away technology, and go back to the basics, that's what I mean. It'll all kind of build right back up to where it is, you know. I mean, how many deluges do you think there really were? Like, I think there was a little more than just one flood or like a meteor hitting the place or which whatever a meteor is. I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's
You know,
interesting as well what you're saying about the flood, like the Noah story, like how like God basically just communed with him, like you know, like gave him like build the boat and things, like you know, it's interesting, isn't it?
yeah, and I find all of those stories very interesting. And on top of that, like even today, if there was like a massive flood, in Africa, for instance, or South America. Here in the United States, we don't really hear much about that unless it gets flared up for whatever political talking point. But like what really happens in those places, like I highly doubt we actually hear what's going on for like, the real
I don't
stories.
think that might be a download, like you were talking about earlier on, like telepathy and things, or like a intuition, a knowing, like a seer, like it talks about in the Bible, like the prophets and things, like who could foresee things, see the forest for the trees, sense things and prepare, and then build the boat, and then all the degenerate humans get all washed away or whatever, and Noah and all the animals or whatever on the boat. It's interesting, and even the fact that all these like like sacred texts and like all the people, the alchemists or whatever, the mystics through history with the symbols that we're exploring here, how they've recorded all that for people like ourselves to come across and try and decode or understand. It's like a map or something, like all the parables and all this kind of thing. And like, because it is a mysterious place, like we've all emerged here into life, into the path of our lives. And here we have all like met, it's interesting, like
The
like
odds
you
seem
never
very slim.
imagine, or all the years ago, like, but you could never imagine like what would unfold, like the technology or all this greatness, really. um like it is wonderful in a way, and it is magical in a way,
I agree. I think the odds are very slim.
Slim for what?
Of this collection of people meeting.
I think it's cool though. Like it really is great to have a place like this, like to be open minded and like explore things and be able to like share, because in everyday life, a lot of people are really open minded, or like they're so kind of programmed, or like closed minded. But it is good to be able to share and learn as well from each other, and grow together in a way as well, like, so
Yeah.
it is a wonderful thing.
No, and I
What word did you use for that, Reagan?
for what?
All of us here together.
Did I say we?
Synchronicity.
No, he said another word, but I would
Oh,
call it
I'm
a
sorry.
gathering,
Go ahead.
like a church. But
A
even
gathering.
though I don't, yeah, like I wouldn't call it a church, even. But
A
in a
congress,
way, it kind of is, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
a
idea of
council.
church
We are
was
a
never
council.
like
Yeah, yeah,
a building
yeah.
in any type.
Right,
It's
right, right.
basically the same concept as like the constitutional rights of being able to organize and protest. Like you don't actually need a structure for that. There's no physical place. It's an action. So the same thing with like there's no word for it because it's something that's moving. It's in motion. It's what's alive, animate.
Right. It's Mercury,
It's mercury.
right? The flow. Yeah.
The silvery liquid.
Goes back to what Armin was saying, that truth has no words.
It doesn't. But it's one of our primary ways to communicate through all these digital devices in the modern time. So this is where we are.
Yeah.
We're using words. But that's why I like to do these like presentation like, slides and pictures and PowerPoints and such, and keeping it simple. That's, it's it gets difficult because these topics aren't. They just aren't, right? It's not.
Right, and even that picture that you're portraying now, which is back to the monad, right? It has a flow to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. You have to go with the flow to become self. Because if you get stuck, you're never going to do it. Ever.
Yep. That's a good way to put it. Anybody got, questions or anything else going on? Like, I really don't have
The moderator?
like full on
Yeah.
3-hour presentations ready. There's just so many images, just in this one folder that, I've said it multiple times. It could be like 25, encyclopedia like videos.
Can I jump in, Reagan?
Go for it.
I'm seeing Linda's picture of the tree and the root kind of symbol. I was thinking recently,
Tree and root.
I heard an analogy or something like that, metaphor.
My avatar.
Oh,
Yeah, that was in a movie of
yeah,
Jacob's Ladder, where they're saying that
part of it.
if you're scared of death, you'll
Okay.
see demons tearing your life apart, whereas, another way of looking at it is angels that are trying to free you or free your soul and that kind of thing. And that got me thinking to, like, a line, say, or like a trunk, you could have the branches that would be going to externalizing the view of something, like, and that can branch off in many different ways. And I was thinking the other end is like the singular point that is internal, but then I guess once you start to look that way, you see lots of kind of like branching roots and that kind of thing. I don't know, just something interesting. Split.
Oh yeah, I very much agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
you could kind of say that all of these slides, right? They're basically the codes or the programming to who we are as people, as humans, and our environment, like all of these slides.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is you could actually create your own. And like more than likely it's going to resemble, one of the different branches of religion or some sort of company or the elements or the world around you, or like no matter how you pull it, it's still going to have some semblance of everything that's around you, no matter what, despite what you try to cut out or not be influenced by. I mean,
Yeah.
of course, you're going to like pick certain things. You're probably going to go with things that are more in likeness and, not hold to things that aren't. Just like Linda said earlier, I don't like this word, or Armin did as well. I don't like this word or this viewpoint. Yeah, I I don't like a lot of people's viewpoints and arguments and ways that they look at it. Half of these images I don't agree with, but it doesn't mean I'm going to dismiss it, That's where I see a huge problem, is when people are like, "Oh my God, don't look at that. That's terrible." That was a huge part of my growing up in the Christian and Catholic worlds. Like, they're trying to beat into you their way, and then they do it in this weird, twisted righteousness way, in which, I'm beating you for your own good. Oh, you can do whatever you want as long as you do it my way. Um, you know, it's all paradoxes. which life is a paradox, I think, or a multitude of paradoxes, I would think. So that makes sense. If you want to control somebody, you're going to work on the basic elements of creation, which is paradox. So that's why I do like the male-female symbolism and things that with life and death. To me, I relate all these things to, I think my favorite analogy would be temperature. You know, if you ask someone to define temperature, well, all they're going to do is give you a whole bunch of descriptions, right? It'd be the same thing like trying to define a color to a blind person. It's
Does that
rather
relate?
impossible.
Does
Huh?
that relate to there's a fire and somebody puts your hand in the fire so you don't burn yourself?
Yeah, like don't touch the stove because it's hot,
Yeah.
that type of thing. That's a good analogy for like learning through experience. You know, you can tell someone it's hot a million times. With a flame top stove, it's a lot easier because you have a visual flame that's flickering. But when you're trying to teach someone who's young with like an electric stove top, and they're not tall enough to see that the black ring is red, so to them, like, it's always a cold something surface. You can tell them it's hot all you want, but they're not really going to learn until they touch it, or they actually see that red ring that starts to form when the coils get hot.
Yeah, but if they really want to know the truth, they will touch it
Oh yeah,
to
they're always
find
going
it.
to touch it.
Yeah.
Anybody who's raised kids knows that, you know, no matter what you tell them, they're still going to do the opposite. Maybe not always. And not every kid's the same. Not every child's. You know, each one's unique.
It's interesting in the Bible how it says, I know you were going to deal with me treacherously. Like, it's interesting. It kind of relates to all that.
Oh, the contradictions in the Bible are well documented in some of Silas's books and his other notes and works. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Even when I was in Catholic school, I mean, they just teach the contradictions outright because they were taught the same way, you know, like nuns or the preachers or if you had teachers or whoever it was. They were also taught in the same manner and programmed the same way, and they believe those things now. So when they come and teach you, it's the exact same method, and it's just beat into you, right? There's the whole right and wrong and the grading system.
Yeah, and this brings me back to the 42, right? Earth, wind, water, air, whatever. And the 2, light and dark. That is the answer to your life, is it not?
In like the most basic terms.
In the most basic terms, yes. Which is what this is all about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's all love and fear. Taurus.
Fear God.
It's all frequency.
Yep, in these fields. I mean, the first verse, I think it's the first, right? Vibration, the sound in the beginning. It's lots of different frequencies. And I mean, when it comes to like looking at the computer variation, right, your simulation theories and all that kind of stuff, 3D rendering is what, you know, the technical terms are for like the human biological experience with the consciousness connection to soul, or what is spirit. And then it gets all crazy when you try to define spirit versus soul and all these different things. And we can argue all those complexities, you know, to the world's end. I think that's pretty much what's kind of occurring for everyone. as they try to discover themselves. But there's lots of snake salesmen out there, and there's lots of people that, you know, don't want to figure themselves out whatsoever. They want the world to change to what they expect. You know, there's just a huge mix. You have a giant mix of all sorts of things, and then there's all this crap that we can't verify. We have no idea. I don't know. It always sounds nutty and crazy, but I still read all the stories and research into all the reptilian stories and aliens and all these different things. Because to me, names and titles are just that. They're just names and titles. It's
Do you
I need to know the person who's describing those things. You have to understand the author to also understand the words they're telling you and where
do
they're
you
coming
think?
from.
Sorry.
Go ahead. You're good. Go ahead.
Do you think the reptilian theory is true? Like, I do think like we're on an alien planet, but do you think we have reptilian overlords? I know that's a bit mad, but do you actually think like people say like apparently they are real and they have this crystal mask or something. I don't know what it is, but like they can lose form. I'm sure I've seen a reptilian, guys. Honestly, one time, right, I was walking like out of a shop, and this woman was like I was walking in and she was walking out, and see her mouth, it looked like all jagged teeth. Like she did look like she morphed. Like I wasn't on drugs or anything or alcohol. Like I was sober, and like she actually lost form. I thought, was that like a reptilian?
Mm-hmm.
Reagan, were you looking to wrap up the presentation and then maybe, we can continue discussion, whoever wants to stick around for that, or?
Yeah, we can cut all. I think that's plenty of symbols and such going on.
Yeah, sorry
I
to
can
interrupt
just
there.
end the share screen.
Thank you so much for that, by the way.
Yeah,
And thanks everybody for
also
showing
gonna
up. That's awesome.
cut the recording as well.